Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir. I hope you're still connected.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome our today's speaker, Dr. M. Ananda Kumar, Senior Scientist at Nature Conservation Foundation, Mysore. Dr. Anindita Roy Saha, Coordinator, Center for Earth Studies, all the faculty members of the college, and all the participants in this special lecture session in the online certificate course on climate, community, and conservation. And this lecture is going to be under the theme Community and Conservation. So, on behalf of the Department of Environmental Studies at IP and the entire IP College community, sir, I would like to extend my sincere thanks for agreeing to deliver a talk in this session. And I would first like to introduce our today's speaker to all the participants. It is my privilege, nonetheless, to say that it is my privilege to introduce him, Dr. M. Ananda Kumar. He's a senior scientist with Nature Conservation Foundation, Mysore. He has been involved in conservation of Asian elephants in human-dominated landscapes since 2002. He obtained a PhD in psychology from University of Mysore, during which he studied ecological and behavioral aspects of elephants and human-elephant interactions in the Anamanai Hills of Tamil Nadu. His work featured in peer-reviewed national and international journals, book chapters, and several technical reports. He works with a team of conservationists and local communities to promote coexistence in the interspersing areas of people and elephants. He has been the recipient of Carl G's Wildlife Conservation Award, Whitley Fund for Nature Green Oscar Award, and Kirloskar Vasundhara Satkar Award. So, sir, I'm sure that with your decades of research experience working with communities and working with fringe communities and wildlife and habitat conservation, we all are immensely going to benefit from your research experience. So, no, with this, without wasting any time, I would hand over the session to you. And after your session, we can have a small discussion on a Q&A at the end. Uh, Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Naveen Kumar Tiwari.
Thank you, sir.
It's a great opportunity for me to interact with students, and it's my privilege to talk to you. And I really thank all of you for attending this talk. So yeah, let me share my screen. Which one I can share? Is the screen visible to all?
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. See, as all of us know about elephants, you know, and so India holds the largest Asian elephant population in Asia. Um, but when you look at this picture, what do you think? What does it occur to you when you look at this picture? It's not simply that a girl looking through the window outside there is an elephant which is walking so in front of her house. So this is what the picture depicts. But in reality, there are thousands of people, hundreds of elephants are interacting with each other on a daily basis. So it creates a kind of tension, or it creates a kind of anxiety both in people and in elephants when they have to negotiate with each other on a daily basis. So this picture, look at this girl who is staring at an elephant, and this girl may be thinking about her parents, whether they're coming back home safely without getting injured because of elephants, or she may be thinking that, oh, she may have to go to school. So when there are elephants on the way, how would she go to school? So these are the several kinds of questions that people would face across landscapes in India. So it's not only in India but throughout Asia. So my presentation will have three parts. One is that I will be talking about the significance of elephants in terms of their behavior, in terms of their significance, importance, and why we should conserve. The second part is about the kind of measures that are implemented across India in order to deal with conflicts between people and elephants. And the third part, how we dealt with the conflict situation. So these are the three parts. So going to the first part, why should we conserve the elephant? So Asian elephant is a highly endangered species. As you would know that endangered species, which means that their lives are being threatened because of various reasons. There are developmental activities that are happening across the country, across Asia, across the world. There are dams coming up, mining is happening, and roads are coming up, villages are being expanded, townships are growing. So all these kinds of developmental activities, which is actually hammering Asian elephant habitats or most of the forest habitats in India. So and in the world, which means that Asian elephant is found only in 13 range countries left as compared to African elephants, which is about 2 lakhs. And India holds the largest Asian elephant population. So 60% of Asian elephant population live in India. Of course, because of all these developmental activities, their habitats are shrinking, which is actually pushing these elephants moving out of their natural habitats, which are forests, and into human habitations. The second effect is that since their forests are becoming very small and small, they're becoming fragmented. So you would see that a patch of forest is about 20 square kilometers, 30 square kilometers, no, which is not good for large ranging species like elephants. And see the fragmentation of our natural habitats have different meanings. So look at Asia, that many of our countries do have lots of population. At the same time, we have a lot of wildlife that surrounds us. Yeah, and we are surrounded by many species around us. So the kind of natural forest what we have is very very small as compared to African continent. They talk about fragments of 20,000 square kilometers is a forest fragment. We are talking about zero point 0.3 hectare of forest, natural forest is a fragment. So look at this elephant. In terms of elephant, one can actually draw parallels between human and elephant society because they live in groups. They live in
Sir, I'm so sorry to interrupt in between. I think there are some comments from participants that your voice is a bit lower.
quite.
So is there a way to increase your volume? So I think that would be great.
I have increased it to maximum.
Yes, sir.
Again,
Now it's fine. Yeah, it's very fine, sir. Yeah, thank you.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry about that.
So
So look
sorry,
at
sir, for interrupting you in between. Please come.
no problem, no problem. So one can actually draw parallels between human and elephant societies because they live up to 70 years on average. We also live up to 70 years on average. They have families. We have families. Look at this picture where you could see this calf, no, the elephant calf. So she is taught by the mother because both elephant calves are human, child. They, they are not born with natural survival skills. They have to be taught. So here in this case, that a mother would taught the calf, like as we see in human society, that where to look for food and how to protect themselves and what are the learning skills that could actually learn. So which way to look for food and which are the dangerous places, all these things. How we do it exactly like humans. Yeah. But when this calf grows up to a
Sir, we cannot see your slides moving. We are still stuck at the first page of your slide.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
I'm sorry.
Okay, now it has moved to the second and
Which slide do you see? Elephant and calf?
elephant and calf. Yes, in the water. Yeah.
Okay, okay. This is the one.
Uh, we now see the fourth slide.
Okay. Are slides moving?
Yes,
No,
sir.
sir. No, sir.
I don't know what's happening.
I
If you
think
share screen,
you can share your entire screen. I think that would probably.
Uh, can you
yes,
see the
sir. Now,
video? Can
yes,
you
sir.
see the video? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So when they grow up as a juvenile, and you would see that males, particularly males, they tend to play little away from their herds. And as you can see here in this video, so particularly when males would become juveniles and they start spending little away from their groups or herds, and they tend to involve in the play. Play would become a part, an important role, in young one's lives to develop skills and also um, to set equations. All of us have equations, no, between us. So dominant and subordinate equations that will be formed during this juvenile period. At the same time, they do have. So when they get they get into areas which do not have any disturbance from people, and particularly along the rivers, you will see most of the young ones are playing together, and they do, when they try to greet with each other, they use their trunks to greet each other. It's a kind of an assurance behavior that one could see among young ones and even adults also. That's the same thing. Yeah. So this here in this video, this is an adult male which was in a must, which is sexually aroused condition, physiologically aroused condition thing. When this must male was with the herd, and any subordinate male he will not tolerate. So this particular young adult male, which just ran away from this master male. So this is a kind of dominance and subordinate relationships that elephants do have in most cases. So in this video, as you can see that it's not that elephants do respond aggressively to people, but also they do respond in the times of danger when they notice that there is something danger to their lives. Then they would also respond in a similar way, whether there are people or any other species. So in this particular video, as you can see, there was a wild dog, a carnivore species, which is just moving around very close to this elephant, and how these mothers actually try to get young ones together, and they are guarded by um, adults. So this so that they would actually take care of their families. But what happens that when elephants are actually crossing the road and they tend to be really together, they tend to rush, on the road and immediately move towards the cover. So this is the video shot in one of our study areas. This is one of our study herds. So as you can see that they tend to be always, they tend to move away from people. They tend to move away from human made structures, like whether it's a road or buildings or houses or bungalows or factories or townships or villages. Yeah. So as you can see that, so the typical elephant behavior is that the elephants will be calmly, they are very calm, they will be grazing, but when they could sense that there is somebody close by, as you can see in this video, that there is a swamp there, young ones are guarded, and immediately they noticed. My colleague and me were actually watching them for nearly 2 hours. But when the wind direction changed from our side towards the elephant, then all elephants got alerted. So, and they just move away from us. If they wanted to kill us, then they would have done it that time only. So we were very, very close. But you could see that how this elephant herd is actually moving forward, where the leader of the herd, the female, is the leader, and actually directs all other individuals to follow her. And you could actually see that young ones or juveniles are being covered by the adults. So this is a spectacular and a fantastic thing how their social systems would actually evolve. So if you look at that, when they are actually moving, they actually move in one pile or one line. So this is how that elephants exhibit their behavior. Yeah. So this is an amazing video. That this video was shot in Sri Lanka by one of our friends and colleagues, Dr. Prithviraj Fernando. Dr. Fernando has been studying elephants in Sri Lanka for the past 30 years, and this was very close to Yala National Park. And look at this, the way which elephants actually behave, the way which people behave. Yeah. So this guy was actually driving slowly, constant speed towards 80 elephants, and most of them are makanas there, which are tuskless males. They are called makanas. Yeah, and the other side of the elephant, so you could see that children, women, houses, they are standing there. How these elephants ran for their lives. So that's how the elephants are actually chicken-hearted species or chicken-hearted animals. And we tend to, when there are such kind of regular interactions, frequent interaction that happens, they also lose the fear or the shyness of people that may lead to some sort of negative interactions. So look at India. So as you can see in this picture, the India map, that all these are polygons. What you can see are wildlife protected areas, which are nothing but wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, tiger reserves across the country. Yeah. So all these protected areas represent less than 5% of the land what we have. Even the government claims that there are 20% of the India land in India is under forest cover, which includes monoculture plantations like eucalyptus, or acacia plantations, or rubber plantations, tea, coffee, everything. So all these monoculture plantation areas are also considered under forest cover. Yeah. So which is so if we could actually think about this protected area, our argument is that if 95% of the land in India cannot solve human problems, even if we convert this whatever the 5% of the protected land for developmental activities like dams or roads or canals or mining areas, it's not going to solve human problems. But having retaining this at least this minimum protected area, I know 5% of the area, if we can actually retain this, that is actually helping us a lot because it's trying to address the climate change what we are talking about, climate change effects today, and it will also facilitate lots of rivers are being originated from most of these forest areas along the western ghats and eastern ghats. Yeah, and all these forest areas are actually giving us clean water, clean air, and tackle the global warming. So we should, so there should not be any negotiation in terms of conversion of these natural forest areas for any developmental activities. Yeah. So look at where are Asian elephants distributed. If you look at Asian elephants are distributed across 13 range countries in these protected areas. There are Asian elephants wherever they are. So there is a sort of interaction that you would see between people and elephants. So as you can see in this map. But are elephants only in the forest areas? Are elephants only in protected areas? The question is that the answer is that no. Because look at one of our colleagues, MD Madhusudan, so who has done phenomenal work in the state of Karnataka. As you can see that 60% of elephant populations are distributed outside protected areas. Outside protected areas, where are they? They are among us. So there are thousands of villages that are spread across or surrounding the protected areas. That's where the elephants are. So 60% of Asian elephant population is distributed outside protected areas. So one may say that, oh, this is only one state, but there may be. So it could be a chance. But look at the Sri Lanka, where Dr. Prithviraj Fernando, his team has actually looked at is shared by people and elephants. So they both co-occur. So which means that let us not think that okay we can have exclusive zones for people and elephants or for that matter any species. Today you can see that leopards are in Mumbai city. Yeah. So there are lots of wildlife that you would see moving around among the people, between villages, between cities. So India doesn't have a luxury to have uh, an exclusive zone for people and wildlife. So we really need to coexist with each other with minimal negative interactions. So that is the challenge thing. So as you can see that when there is an interaction that happens, so with elephants, people are people are getting attacked by elephants. People are losing their crops. Elephants are also losing their population, their individual members, and people are losing their lives, and elephants are also losing their lives. So it's a really very, very critical situation. As you can see, the conflicts are really very, very high in terms of costing people lives and costing elephant lives as well. So thus, if you look at the conflict crisis across India, an average that 500 people are losing their lives, an annual average is about around 500 people. So recently, that forest minister has actually made this announcement in the parliament. And at the same time, because of the conflict situations, we are also losing elephants at much faster rate. So there are many reasons for this. One is people, elephants are losing their lives because of electrocution, train accidents, poaching, poisoning that you would see across India in different landscapes. So hence, the protecting the lives of people and elephants would become a priority, high priority issue for both for the government. So in order to address this conflict, you know, governments, people, state forest department, scientific and conservation organizations have been implementing various measures. So some of the common measures that what you would see is physical barriers, erecting the physical barriers, deployment of electric fences or trenches. So none of these things are would work and could effectively mitigate the conflict or reduce the friction between people and elephants. So when these two measures are not working, then people demand the forest departments or state governments to bring domesticated elephants or kunkis to drive away elephants from the croplands. And if none of these things would work, then the resort to the highest reactive measure is capturing elephants. As you can see in this picture, where this capture was done in the Hassan region where we are working right now. Yeah. So elephants are really intelligent because they are problem solvers if you see. So in this video, as you can see that this single tusker is trying to move from one forest patch to the other forest patch, but in between you can see there's an electric fence. So it's a live wire that was there. So this video was shot in Sri Lanka again by one of my colleagues, Sridhar Vijay Krishnan. Look at this, the way which this fellow tackles the problem. Yeah, he uses tusks which are non-conductors and he bends it. He will try. So he crossed over the fence, the physical barrier. So there are n number of examples like this. So one of the beautiful examples in Sri Lanka, somebody has actually looked at how elephants actually negotiate with these solar powered fences. Was that there's an elephant which breaks the branch and pulls out all these wires. So which is really remarkable the way which they actually deal with the solar power fence. Just to give you an example, that in India that we are investing lakhs of rupees on implementing physical barriers, whether it is a trench which would cost about 60 lakh rupees per kilometer, with a solar fence which is about 2.5 lakh per kilometer, and rubble walls. Today we have railway fences which would cost about a kilometer would cost about 1.3 crore. So we are spending so much of money on these things. So, but they miserably failed across landscapes just because that really don't understand elephants in terms of their movement, their ecological requirement, their behavioral understanding. So this is there is absolutely lack of knowledge, but we are trying to implement these things. So look at this. At any one of the points that people would say that electric fences don't work because of lack of maintenance. People don't really take care of that. Yeah. So people have to look at that how much electricity is passing through. Every day they have to check whether there was any power leakage from the fence to the ground. So these things at any given point of time, all along the fence, one could only spend about 10 minutes time, but elephants to have 24 hours time to deal with the issue. Since they are intelligent like us, they could actually solve the problem. So none of these fences, none of these physical barriers have actually resulted in desirable results. They may have worked in some few places here and there with a positive outcome, but at the landscape level, that they didn't work desirably. So when none of these things worked, people demand for translocation of elephants. Let's capture this elephant and move it to somewhere else. So let's look at this Chandy story. So Chandy is uh, you know is um, is branded as a notorious animal by people in Sri Lanka, and they demanded the Sri Lankan Wildlife Department to capture Chandy. And when he was captured, and there was a radio collar which was put on a, around his neck, which will actually give GPS locations of that particular individual. So he was taken from a to a place to a different place, far off place, which is about 200 kilometers. Yeah, and he was put on a truck and thinking that this animal would stay in the second place permanently. But what happened in a few days' time, this animal started moving out of that and came back to the origin place. So, which means that look at this cognitive abilities, that the cognitive maps, what they have is that they know very well about their place, and even though they are left somewhere else, they could come back. The same thing what you would see even dogs or even cats, even snakes. So that homing instinct is always there in most of the species, which we selectively ignore, or we very conveniently ignore all these things. Yeah. So look at the other relocation or translocation that had happened in Sri Lanka. So there was a herd of elephants among people. This particular herd was there, and department decided to capture them, put them into Yala National Park. This is a huge Yala National Park. There are lots of elephants inside. Yeah, but over a period of time, people thought, or department thought, or experts thought that the elephants would actually go inside this Yala National Park and settle there. But they started moving all along the border because Yala National Park was fenced all along the boundary with an electric fence. Yeah, so these elephants could not come out. So over months, they become really thin, weak, and they have absolutely no idea where their food resources are actually distributed. And ultimately, most of them died. Okay, almost all of them died. So in about 8 to 1 year, 8 months to 1 year time. So what does it achieve? So by translocating these animals, we are actually killing them. So we are not solving the issue, but we are actually uh, no, it's we are actually um, shifting the problem to new areas. You know, n- this is neither resolving the issue nor contributing to the conservation of elephants, which we strongly feel that it's a national heritage animal. So how to address this? So look at this. The places where we are working, we followed these steps. One is really need to understand the relationships between people and elephants. That's the most important thing. The second thing, once we understand those relationships, we really need to identify and implement appropriate conflict mitigation measures if we have to address the conflict mitigation. And it's not enough that identifying and implementing, but we really need to bring people on board. There are thousands of people who are losing their lives and their livelihoods. They need to be brought on the board in order to solve this issue. And of course, the state forest departments need to be involved in the entire thing, because in any given place, that elephants, people, and the department are permanent, and so hence we really need to involve all of them in order to achieve a positive result. But it's not only enough that involving them, but we also need to look at how effective the implementing measures are. So that is really an important thing in order to see how the efficacy of the mitigation measures or the systems. So we are working in two landscapes. One is the Valparai Plateau, and the second one is the Hassan landscape. As you can see in the Valparai Plateau, which is these two are two contrasting landscapes. I will explain to you. Valparai Plateau is about 220 square kilometers, as you can see, right in the middle of protected areas. And within this plateau region, which is plantation dominated landscape, most of the plantation is dominated by tea and coffee plantations, and the natural forest is only in the form of forest fragments. Yeah. So in contrasting to this is that there's a Hassan landscape where we are monitoring elephants in 240 villages, which is about 620 square kilometers of the area. And most of the area is dominated by coffee plantations. There is a paddy grown in between coffee plantation areas, and there are thousands of people. There are about 1 lakh, more than 1 lakh people living here, and about 50 elephants in this. So in the Valpara region, as you can see that historically, the prime rainforest areas in the Anamala Hills in the Western Ghats region of Tamil Nadu was clearfield for tea and coffee plantations during British time, so 120 years ago. Yeah, and that was the time that they have actually meticulously recorded the kind of species, wildlife species that Britishers have actually encountered. So they have actually mentioned in a beautiful book called The Anomalies, which was published in 1942 by C.R.T. Congreve. And he talks about elephants there while clearing the forest areas, which means that we have invaded into their land. We have cleared their forest areas, their homes, and we occupied. Yeah. But now we can't say that it happened 120 years ago. We can't tell people who are living now in the Valparai region that, hey, you are living in elephant landscape, you should move out. Where will they go? Do they go to Coimbatore city or Chennai city or Bombay? So, in this particular landscape, what we did was that we tried to understand elephants first. So, we identified individual herds. We have given names to individual herds. There is a Monica herd, there is Steppier herd, there is Pigtail herd, there is a Varatapara herd. So, when you identify these herds and given names to each of these individuals, it becomes a different world. Why is Sangeeta is behaving like this as compared to Sultana? So, because they do have individual characteristics, individual personalities. So that will open up the whole world of their society and which will give us a better understanding about their society that would actually help in drawing the appropriate conservation measures or coexistence measures. So as you can see that in these maps that each colored dots indicate each herd. So the point what I want to get across to you that over the years consistently different herds have shown similar movement patterns. The areas which are used by a particular herd was again used the same herd used the same areas again and again over the years. So which has given us an idea about these are the sensitive areas, these are the important areas for this particular herd and how they are moving through the landscape, tea plantation landscape is extremely important for to draw any conservation action plan for this. So look at the Hassan region. As I had explained that these are all acacia plantation, what you see, lot of coffee you would see, and there are open places. These are gomalas or grazing areas for cattle, and also you see there are about 50 odd elephants in this landscape. So these elephants are not isolated here. They are connected with the neighboring elephant populations in the neighboring areas. Coorg, that is connected to Nagarhole National Park, Tiger Reserve, which is a part of the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. So which is one of the largest reserves in the country. So which spans about 6,000 odd square kilometers. So the point here, what I want to say is that these 50 elephants are not isolated population. They are connected to the other populations through plantation areas until up to Nagarhole National Park. Yeah. So there are more than 1 lakh people living here in this landscape. Yeah. So over the years, what happened? There was a lot of pressure on that forest department to remove these elephants. In 2014, the first, the, after a gap of several decades, that a major mass capture operation was conducted in 2014. So 22 elephants were captured from this landscape, and 17 elephants were sent to the captivity or forest department elephant camps, and five were released far off in a forest area. That's about 250 kilometers away from this landscape. But immediately, what we saw in a few months' time, that there are more elephants that the conflict issue. So how to do this in this landscape? How do elephants move? So what we looked at was that, as you can see in this animation, here the dots you can see, the yellow dots you can see is the GPS locations of elephants from 2015 onwards up to 2020. And what you see white polygons are the fences. So as the landscape over the years that elephants were moving from north to south direction, as you can see here, and fences started coming up, yeah, in order to avoid elephants getting into somebody's cropland or coffee estates and stuff. So as a result of fences that have come up, elephant population is pushed. Elephant herds were pushed towards the north. They're stuck in the northern part, and they have now gone beyond this study area, 240 villages, into neighboring areas which they had never been in the last two decades. Yeah, these people who are living here were really surprised why we have never seen elephants in our areas. These elephants have become really bold, aggressive, very angry at people. So these are the kinds of comments that we have received. So but they don't really understand how these elephants are actually pushed because of these fences that have come up recently, and which has actually escalated the conflicts. So look at this, what kind of conflicts that you would see in this landscape, in both the landscapes. So Valparai region, what you see that there are damages to buildings, as you can see, and there are residential places will get hit by elephants, but particularly at kitchen side and bathroom side. And there are noon meal centers in schools which run midday meal scheme, and elephants go to those noon meal centers and damage those centers. Yeah, but there is no crop damage here, but damage to buildings is a critical thing, and people will be sleeping at night, and when somebody's house gets damaged by elephants, it's a really traumatic situation. Yeah, but on the other hand, you see that there are a lot of damage to crops that happens in the Hassan landscape. That is our second study area. Well, there are damages to coffee bushes, but mostly to paddy crop. But in both the landscapes, what is the most serious concern is loss of life. Yeah, so people dying because of elephants. That has actually escalated the anger, traumatic thing. Think about in a person losing a life, which means that the person could be a breadwinner of that place, of that place, of that family, and the entire family will be ruined if he or she dies because of elephants. And the entire village will get negative attitude towards elephants. That's going to ruin all the conservation efforts, and which is not good for both people and elephants. So we looked at the data. I'm presenting here the data of human deaths, across these two landscapes. So in Valpara region, there are about 48 people lost their lives between 1994 and now. And here in Hassan landscape, there are 47 people in about 10 to 11 years time. So mostly men who lost their lives, as compared to women. And the age range, people who lost their lives were as young as 13 years up to 70 years. Yeah. So this is just to give you a snapshot about human death crisis in these both landscapes. So the first question we asked was that where did these deaths occur? When did these deaths occur? Who lost their lives? The question here that in both the landscapes, as you can see in this slide, that majority of the incidents or human death incidents because of elephants occurred on roads. So these are the roads used by people and elephants. And second thing is that most of the deaths in Valparai region, most of the people lost their lives between December and February in a year. So which means that this information will give us this is the most sensitive critical period in a year. So when we know this information, then we should be able to step up our efforts to make sure that no people won't lose their lives in this particular sensitive period, so that the incidence of deaths will come down drastically. But such kind of patterns, we didn't see in Hassan landscape, which means that a death incident can happen at any month, in any month. But we didn't see any time of the day pattern in the Valparai region, which means that any time of the day, which means that it could be morning, evening, afternoon, night time, any time of the day that incident may happen. But in the case of Hassan, what you can see that 70% of the incidents, 33 people out of 47 cases, lost their lives between 6 and 10 in the morning and 4 and 8 p.m. Okay, this is the time that people go out to their paddy fields, because during paddy time, farmers could work from very quite early in the morning between 6 and 10. After that, because of heavy intensity of sunrise, they will not be able to work, and people will be working in coffee estates. They will be returning back around 4 o'clock. So that's the time that they encountered elephants and lost their lives. So in both the cases, in both the landscapes, what you can see that people who lost their lives were between 40 and 60 years old. The reason here is that it's a prime earning age, so people spend most of their time during the day outside working and try to earn money. And the same time that the natural reflexes will also become slow. So these are the critical information that one should know before we even think of implementing any mitigation measure. So as you can see in this video, that what kind of circumstances that is actually telling us that this elephant called Bhima in Hassan region, he wanted to go to a different forest patch, crossing the road, and look at number of people following him. If I were to be in this elephant position, and if I am followed by hundreds of these people, I would turn around and slap one or two guys. If elephant does the same thing, then people will complain about elephants because people will get killed with that slap. So I feel very uncomfortable if somebody is taking pictures, mobiles, and making noise and following me. I would be really scared. So think about the kind of situations that elephants go through in there. So we looked at the circumstances of deaths in both the landscapes. In both these landscapes, as you can see here, that a majority of the people who lost their lives, they they were unaware of elephant presence. So in this case, the video, that what you see here in this picture here is that people were aware and they are going behind the elephant. So in majority of the instances in both the landscapes, n- people had no idea about elephant presence and their movement in their surroundings. That's why people lost their lives. So for in other cases, people try to follow these elephants, as you can see in this picture. And if this guy is talking over phone, try to follow. If the elephants turn back, he will get killed. Majority of instances, people had no idea about that. So how to get across to this information, elephant presence, to people so that many people lives could be saved? So one of the things what we started was that we started tracking elephants and the tracking information with along with the GPS location, and that information was passed on to people using television, okay, cable TV television thing. But that started in Valparai region, but the cable television didn't work um, properly because the subscription to television, the cable network, dropped from 25,000 connections to 5,000 connections, which means that right now we have 5,000 families watching that cable television channel. So, which will actually display every day about elephant locations as a scroll in a local language in Tamil. So, in Karnataka, when we started seeing that people started using mobile phones, then we asked people whether they would like to receive elephant location information on their mobile phones in the form of text messages. As you can see, both in Kannada and in Tamil. So the text messages every day it will go. So there are about 2,000 to 2,500 text messages would go to people who have actually registered their mobile phone numbers with us. So we never asked people, we never insisted people to share their numbers because it's their personal information. But those people who have actually shared their numbers voluntarily and express their willingness to receive elephant alerts on their mobile phones, with whom they only they will get these messages. But we also requested those people that when they get message, elephant location message on their mobile phones, we requested them to pass on that message to their neighbors, friends, and relatives, so that everybody will be safe, everybody will be aware of elephants, so that they can actually avoid fatal encounters with elephants. So what happens if the person is unable to read a text message? So we started sending out voice calls. So it's nothing but a simple elephant location message is recorded as an MP3 file, and that is uploaded using a web-based platform. So right now that we are using Gupshup SMS Enterprise, now you can see that bulk SMS thing. And what happens that if a person doesn't have a mobile phone? So we have actually installed mobile phone operated alert light indicators in critical junctions in critical areas based on elephant movements, people movements, and the criticality of that sensitivity of that region. So these lights can be turned on from a mobile phone. So we didn't want to operate these mobile phones, but we wanted people to operate. So hence, what we did was that in each light location. We have 35 locations in Valpara region and 12 locations in the Hassan region. In each light location, we asked the people to select two of their people who would be responsible to operate these lights using their mobile phone. It's not that everybody can randomly operate these lights, because these lights have SIM card which would actually take only registered, which would respond to registered mobile phone numbers. So if my mobile phone number is registered with the light, only I will be able to turn on the light. Even the other person comes to know that the SIM card number of that particular light, he or she will not be able to operate it. Okay. And at the same time, that what we noticed in the Hassan region, that there are certain critical junctions which are very, very critical. We have put GSM based digital display boards. So these information boards will actually display elephant message in a local language. So as you can see in this here, that it says that elephants are there, be aware, and indicating the villages and nearest landmarks. So how to send message to this board is nothing. It's not that we will go to each board every day and feed that message, but we will use our laptop, and there is a particular software, custom made software that was actually developed, and through the computer we will send out this message in a local language to the board, and once that is displayed we will get a confirmation message. So these are the easy things, people as we drive through a city, or as we, when we actually withdraw money from an ATM, bank will immediately send an SMS, automated SMS thing. So SMS system has become really popular in every field, health sector, school education sector, or any other thing, banking sector, financial sector. Why can't we use the same technology here for wildlife conservation? So there is no big deal, there's no big science, there is no big idea here, but there are facilities available. We should be able to make use of those simple facilities which are understandable to people is the most crucial thing. So at the same time, that we have seen a very, very proactive steps from both the state forest departments, Tamil Nadu and the Karnataka forest departments. They have rapid response teams in both areas, Valpara region and Hassan region, and they have a helpline which started forest helpline. And Karnataka forest department has gone ahead in putting up radio collars on certain individuals in the study area, so that these radio collars will give us GPS locations every day, so that this location will be used to alert people about elephant location, so that people can effectively avoid. At the same time, we have also conducted, our teams have actually conducted outreach programs for stakeholders. So there are tea estate workers in Valpara region. In Tamil Nadu, we have street plays are very, very popular, and through this street plays we wanted to get across to people about what kind of precautionary steps that the people could actually take when they are actually moving through elephant presence areas, and also that importance of elephants. And this is a land of elephants where we have to adjust ourselves, make little bit adjustment in our lives that could actually facilitate safety to our own lives, and also for the movement of elephants. So these are the things that we could convey to people there. Yeah. At the same time, we also held meetings with estate management here. So Valparai region tea estate companies are owned by seven major companies. There are Tatas, Birlas, BPTC, PKT, lots of national and multinational companies. So they are also very, very keen about elephants and also the safety of their own people, because these people work for these companies. And so they have actually framed certain, they have brought in a lot of changes in their company policy, not to drive away elephants, provide safety to people as whenever they are in need of in the need of emergency, and awareness creation, all these things that companies have taken up. And also that we also held training programs with the forest department field staff, that is rapid response teams, that how would they deal with the elephants when the elephant is on the road, and it's very dangerous to drive the elephants away. So we should actually let the elephants to move on their own, so that people can be alerted, and so that safety is ensured for both. So we looked at the impact of these measures. So there is alert systems, early warning systems that are implemented. Try to analyze the issue here. So if you look at this graph indicates that number of deaths, average number of deaths for every 3 years between 1994 and 2020. So as you can see here that between 1994 and 2002, this is the period where we have not started our work at all. So before our elephant project started, an average three people lost their lives per year. An average three people per year. But after initiating of these systems, working with the people and these collective efforts have actually resulted to an average of one person per year. So if the 3 persons per year average was continued even after implementation of these alert systems and cooperation, if there was no cooperation, then there would have been 31 people would have lost their lives. So it's not the number that is important, no. So it's that the fear of losing life will actually very traumatic. I've seen people that living in the fear. So these systems have actually taken away the fear of unknown. Fear of known is there, but fear of unknown is there. So think about a person. No, a person have to shut their houses after 6 o'clock in the evening because of fear of elephants moving around, and the people are not able to attend any function. They will not be able to go to hospital, or they will not be able to attend, meet their own friends and families. So which becomes an house arrest after 6 o'clock. So which is really traumatic. 1 day, 2 days, fine, but for the entire their lives, they can't be living like that. So the quality of life is extremely important. So this has actually, these early warning systems has actually facilitated this. These are the simple facilities. So we looked at what happened in Hassan region. So if you look at this graph, which indicate that number of human deaths over the years between 2010 and 2021. So an average, if you see, we started our early warning systems, and the same time the department started rapid response teams in September 2017. So people just try to get used to what these early warning systems are and stuff. But if you look at the average number of people who lost their lives between 2010 and 2017, an average 5 people lost their lives. But after initiation of these early warning systems between 2018 and 2020, which has come down by two persons on average, so close to two anyway. But during the last 8 months or so, that we lost 6 people in the Hassan region. So we were really worrying what happened. Suddenly, that early warning systems, have become useless. Yeah. So we started looking at the data, and when we analyzed, so out of 6 deaths, there are 5 people who lost their lives in areas where elephants recently moved in, where those areas do not have any early warning systems. We had no idea about that elephants moving to these new areas all of a sudden. So we could not actually expand our early warning system to new villages, these villages in a short span of time. So now we are planning to expand these systems this year. So that's the reason why that most people lost their lives. Yeah. So what it tells us that what lessons that we have learned is that we really need to move away from problem elephant approach. Everybody thinks, most people think that when they see an elephant causing somebody damage, or somebody lose life, or somebody gets injured, immediately they will say that because this is a rogue elephant. Somebody actually called in Assam, this one elephant was shot dead, and people called that poor elephant was Osama bin Laden. Yeah. So calling all kinds of things rogue elephant, killer elephant kind of thing. So if you see the newspapers which are putting up like rogue elephants, elephants created berserk. So these things, all negative terms that we are trying to. So let's move from problem elephant approach to problem location approach, whether there's a problem in the location or the location itself is a problem. So it's not that if elephants want to kill people, nobody can live in those places. If they want to, they want to intentionally kill people, nobody can survive. in these landscapes. But they don't want to do that. But it's an inevitable thing, unexpectedly, unknowingly, that people and elephants, will be really close together, close to each other. It's most of the time it's always a surprise encounters. That surprise, elephants try to defend themselves. They do mock charge. They come little forward. When the people are within the mock charge distance, they lose their lives or get injured severely. And the second point lesson what we learned was that understanding the problem and work towards a solution. We always tend to look for the solution before we even think of a problem. If something happens in our families, that we really need to assess the problem, no? So this then we look for the solution thing. But when it comes to outside field in the wildlife conservation or any other field, we immediately try to fix the problem with a knee-jerk reaction or knee-jerk solution thing. So that's not going to work. And we really need to address the people and elephant needs. These are the people that who are actually uh, b- you know uh, putting their lives in danger and growing pepper, coffee, tea. Today we are all enjoying tea and go to coffee bars and having coffee in the mornings. So all this coffee come from people that where they are actually living the fear of elephants, and the elephants are also living in the fear of people because they don't know what's going to happen to their lives. So we really need to understand both people and elephant needs, and we really to move from proactive to reactive, from reactive to proactive management solutions. Yeah. So proactive, usually what happens that when we tend to react after the incident happens, but we really need to take a proactive step before the incident happens. That's what. So people talk about permanent solutions. I don't see any permanent solutions here. What is the permanent solution here? Either people should be there or elephant should be there. Is that possible given the Indian scenario? It's not at all possible. So because we have thousands of people and hundreds of elephants are interacting with each other on a daily basis. So, but there are better solutions that are available. We really need to. But the technology, there is no end to technology. Yeah, but the technology is only a tool, not a solution. So where we need a screwdriver, we definitely need a screwdriver, not a spanner. Yeah, that we really need to understand that part. And we need to have an alternate thinking over conventional applications. So if we have officers like this here, this taken, and it's a wild elephant, somebody will be mistaken it for domesticated elephant or kunki elephants. But look at this one, the dedicated people here. Here is the forest guard, who is a forest officer, trying to facilitate this beamer to move around, move through the villages, at the same time warning people to move away from the path on which this elephant is moving. So if elephants want to look at from elephant's point of view, that elephant knows there are people around. Done it in 10 seconds. Yeah. And he also knows there are houses around, there are people around there, but he still obeys all of them, tolerates everybody's noise, and move peacefully. So we need such kind of dedicated officers, dedicated people, and I hope um, that we need more voices from you in order to protect wildlife, and particularly with regard to large species, large species like elephants. So I would like to thank both of forest departments and different funding agencies who have helped us in executing this project over many years. And thank you all. If there are any questions, I will be happy to take.
Thank you very much, sir, for that really enlightening session and a very interesting presentation with all those videos. No, it was really interesting to see and also understand that how robust scientific information is key for implementing any measures which can reduce human-animal conflict in natural habitats, and also the technology-based solutions like using mobile phone, SMS and warning lights, has helped in reducing human-animal conflict in Valparai and Hassan region. So all these case studies were really interesting, and to know that, I mean, those who have been working in the field of conservation have already heard of these stories, but I'm sure that many participants here would have learned about this case study for the first time. And I'm sure if there are any questions, they can please go ahead and ask. And at the end, I mean, something that you said which stuck to my mind, that if 95% of the land that we are using is not sufficient for us, no additional encroachment in the remaining 5% is not going to solve any problem for us. So that's something that could be a very great takeaway. At the end, from the point of view of conservation. So, if there are any questions from participants, please go ahead. Yes, Radhika, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Am I audible now?
Yes, Shubha.
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you, sir, for that really interesting PPT that you shared with us and your lecture. Sir, I just wanted to share this one thing. I don't exactly have a question. That in January this year, I attended a kind of a presentation that was done by the Elephant Conservation and Care Center that is in Mathura, and it is the only elephant conservation center, and I was lucky enough to attend there. And the elephants there, the problems that they had faced, and they were like, it's kind of a rehab center for them. So it was really like at the same time heartbreaking as well as good to know that they got the chance to get rehabbed. And so are there more such centers, or like are there any plans coming up to make more such centers? Because you mentioned
Uh,
some like,
yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for your question, and it's a really very wonderful question. See, the basic idea here is that there are no rescue centers kind of thing that are coming up, and it's not a good idea to have more rescue centers. We try to rehabilitate those elephants back into the wild and reduce the elephants in the captivity as much as possible. So it's very difficult to eliminate all the elephants in the captivity, because there are some individuals which are born in the captive conditions. So, but having said this, look at this. So, how do elephant? Look at the breeding of elephants in captivity. We have poor breeding success. So, all the elephants, most of how are these elephants coming to captive conditions or in rescue centers? Mostly from the wild. Yeah. So there are some abandoned calves which may be there. They have to be sent to the captivity because they need to be taken care by the government. But we are also capturing lots of elephants across the landscapes in India, and most of them will land up in elephant camps, forest elephant camps. There is also a lot of demand from the temples to have elephants. So this is going to be a really bizarre thing, which I strongly personally feel, because look at these elephants under elephant camps. It's okay because elephants will be taken um, for a drive or for a ride inside the. Most of the elephant camps are in a natural conditions, but they have been domesticated. So the domestication process, in the sense that we are actually breaking their physiological, psychological spirits. Yeah. So which is a free ranging animal like this, uh, you know, is confined to a very small area, is unethical for me and for most people. So it's not a good idea to have rescue centers, but there is an orphan center in Sri Lanka And there also they are trying to reduce the number of elephants in often center. But it's in the long run that's not going to be a good idea to have. Did I answer your question, Radhika?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir, I would like to ask a slightly unrelated question to you. It may not be directly related to elephant and conservation as such, but we heard of a very sad story of translocation, elephant translocation that you shared in Yala National Park, where the elephants were mostly moving in the fringe of the park, and they ultimately suffered a very sad fate. So in India, also for many populations which are declining and which have shrinking distribution ranges, for instance, lion, there are plans of having alternative habitats and relocating them in Kuno in MP, and there are some other alternate habitats which have been now under preparation. So, what are your views on these species relocation programs? Do you see that they could be a very good alternative for preserving these shrinking populations?
Yeah. See, if you look at the translocation thing, even in the case of tiger, that was termed, there is a rehabilitation of tigers in Sariska, because until the issue came up and no tigers in Sariska at all for many years, then suddenly one day we realized that, oh, no tigers in Sariska at all. Yeah, so there was really need to understand, that's where the history comes in, no? So how historical landscapes are, whether they were congenial for populations, wild populations like lions and tigers and any other species. Yeah. So uh, yeah. So from Gujarat, and there are plans to um, reintroduce uh, lions in other landscapes. Yeah. So if it is based on a thorough scientific investigation, why not? So because today that there are lots of conflicts that you would see um, around the lion habitats. No, people are losing their livestock, and maybe there are some cases of people getting injured or losing their lives, perhaps. So because I mean, this is my general opinion, but I have not worked on lions before, but it's just based on what people are working in different landscapes about lions and tigers. So basically, reintroduction may be a good thing, so that we can actually get back our lions population healthy. Yeah. So it's not only the state-owned species. No species is owned by any state, but it's the country.
Just an add-on to the same question, sir. So, do you think that creating the habitat first, or maybe creating a good prey base, and modifying the habitat in some way which can have longer continuous patches of forest, is going to make the habitat, or develop the habitat in a better way for the new species which is going to be which is going to be introduced? But that also sometimes leads to, in some areas, for instance Kuno, I happen to come across some case studies that the villagers are protesting because some of these villages are now going to be taken up by the national park to create a more continuous habitat patch. So there is again a conflict situation. I mean, that's also one part that I would like your to know your comments upon. That then again there is a conflict between people, because now they see that lions coming into their area is they're going to lose their own agricultural fields and houses. So how these things could be addressed more amicably?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one should actually look at the conditions there, not only improving the habitat for lions or any species, but how scientifically that's being done, but also take people into consideration. So, yeah, it's in a democratic society, and it's a question of people lives and their livelihoods should be given the equal importance and the priority thing. So that's fair. So it's not that one-sided argument or inside. It's not that one-sided order that will go. Usually, in our society, what happens that there will be some order that percolates from top to down. Yeah. So that's not the way that people will also look at. So when we actually talk to people, make them understand or understand their views and their problems, and their pain, obviously that people will come forward. Okay, to a great extent. So it's not that how many elephants that I would increase is the number. Okay, yeah. So what are we going to do with those numbers? Nothing. Yeah. But how healthy our populations are, that is the most priority issue. So what is the female to young one ratios? That's what more important. If every female is giving birth at regular intervals, and it becomes a healthy population. Yeah. So that's one should actually look at. It's not the number that one should look at. Oh, if we have 50 lines in one place, and let's have 100 more lines in a different place, that is not the motto. That is not our idea. That should not be the idea. Okay. How healthy those populations are, and if there are habitats that are available in a democratic society with the people acceptance, then it can be done.
Thank you, sir. So there's another question by Himanshu Chaudhary in the chat box if you would like to take it up. Thank you, sir, for answering the question. I think I may got be disconnected in between. So there is another question by Himanshu Chaudhary. If you take it up from the chat box.
Yeah, yes, I'm just reading that. Okay. So her question says that is there any peaceful and rapid way we can take to avoid human wildlife conflict in this ever growing population of world? See, if the conflicts are not happening uh, in the recent past. They have been happening for years, and we're also modifying the landscapes, natural landscapes. Yeah. So, which means that there is no rapid, uh, uh, you know, a rapid way that we could actually fix this. Any landscape that you take, any wildlife that is there among people, that there those landscapes may have undergone tremendous amount of land use changes. Yeah, and that has actually led to human wildlife intensive human wildlife conflict in many landscapes. Yeah, it's a very difficult and it's a very challenging thing. There is no rapid solution, but we really need to work. See, we don't have basic data. That's the pity. Okay, in many landscape for many species, so we don't know the population structures, we don't know the land use patterns, historical use of land use, how the forests were actually connected, whether there were any developments. So each of these things are actually happening in different ways. For example, that since there is no coordination among different government line departments, the developmental highways department will suddenly come up and construct a road across a forest area. Forest department may not know that there is a road coming up until there's an order that is issued or the final thing was out. So the lack of coordination among the different line departments, that is actually leading to a chaotic situation. So who is going to fix this? So it's a question. So it's a good question what you asked, but yeah. So don't you think the role of education become more important in avoiding conflicts with wildlife? Yes, education is important. See, it's not that people don't want forest. I have never come across that people, any person saying that we don't want forests. But when it comes to a person's view of nature, okay, then the person loses the connection with the nature. Yes, the education would become an important role, and awareness would become important role. Don't you think that we don't know about the importance of forests? We know that, but even then, we tend to ignore in the middle of lots of other things that we feel that these are very immediate necessaries. So, just to give an example, that I was just giving a talk to children in a school in Mysore, that they thought that nature is somewhere else. Okay, they have to drive up to 60 kilometers to reach this Nagarhole National Park, where they can actually see the nature. Yeah, so it's that kind of thinking that we are actually developing. So, in that matter, yes, education would become important with wildlife. That will actually facilitate reducing this. Yeah. Thank you, Himanshu.
So thank you very much, sir, for picking up all the questions at the end, and I'm sure all the participants and all of us have immensely, enjoyed your presentation and discussion of the case studies from Valparai and Hassan. So once again, from on behalf of the IP College community, I would like to thank you for joining us here today and sharing your phenomenal research experience with us. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All the participants, you are requested to join again on 16th for the next session. Details will be sent to you via mail. Thank you.